Okay, guys, last but not least, we come to the fun part, flesh tones. Don't be intimidated. This is a very simple group of mixtures that'll allow you to mix most any flesh tone you like. So what I'm starting with here is a little palette with titanium white, cadmium red, ochre yellow, burnt umber, burnt sienna, and for underpainting and shadows, ultramarine blue, our warm blue, and phthalo blue, our cool blue. Now first I'm going to show you an underpainting mixture. Underpainting is the first step to successful flesh painting. My underpainting tone is going to consist of white and a little bit of phthalo blue. Do not skip the step of mixing yourself some underpainting tones, guys. And in the next tutorial, you will see why. I want 2 values of this underpainting tone. So I'm going to take another glob of white and just mix in a little bit of what I've already got in the palette. So I've got a very light pale blue and a darker blue. And this can work as an underpainting tone for most any tone of skin. And if you want to make it a little bit more fun, you could add a teeny bit of cadmium red or even alizarin crimson to purple it out a little bit. Now, moving on. Just wiping off my palette knife. To the overpainting flesh tones themselves. So here is a very basic recipe for mixing flesh tones for paler skin. And that can be skin with a pink tone, a more yellowish golden tone, or a slightly tan tone. I'm gonna start once again with a glob of white. When mixing any flesh tone, you're probably going to use more white than you think you'll need. To this white, I'm going to add a glob of cadmium red, and you see this nice, almost terracotta pink that comes out of this mixture. And finally, a glob of ochre yellow. And you can tweak this back and forth. You can add a little bit more cadmium red. You can add a little bit more ochre yellow. I think I'm gonna toss in just a little bit more ochre. And so here's the basic lighter skin flesh tone base. It's looking a little orange, but we'll see what happens when I tint it up. So I'm going to want a lighter value of this. So I'm just going to add a little bit of white to what I've already got on the palette here. So getting kind of a range of values here. From light to medium to deep, and of course, I'm going to need a shadow tone for this mixture. So I'm going to start once again with cadmium red. This time with a glop of ultramarine blue. Probably want to use more red than blue because you want this to kind of have a reddish tone. And shadow tones, when you're painting the figure, will always have white in them as well. Don't forget that. That's looking a little too red for me. I'm going to add a little bit more ultramarine. So now the red and the blue, not exact complementary colors, but near complements, neutralizing each other out into this lovely purple brown. And this is my lighter skin shadow tone. And now that is going to need to be tinted up with a fair amount of white to get it into the place where most flesh tone shadows will be. Probably something closer to this shadow tone. And you can tweak it around again. You can add a little bit more red or a little bit more blue to get it into that lovely shadow tone for these bright pinkish flesh tones. Now moving along, basic mixtures for darker skin tones. Now for the darker skin tones, again, we're going to be using titanium white. We're going to be using that cadmium red and that ochre yellow, but we're going to darken and heat up those tones with some earth colors, with some burnt umber and some burnt sienna. And not forgetting about the ultramarine blue and the phthalo blue, because we'll use those to mix shadow tones as well. And sometimes with darker skin tones, you'll find better shadows are mixed with the cool phthalo blue. But once again, let's begin with a little bit of titanium white. Making a little bit more room on my palette. Temper that with a little bit of ochre yellow. And going to inject some burnt sienna. So now we're getting into some rosy middle skin tones here. A little bit more burnt sienna. Getting that nice, warm, deeper skin tone. And let's try a little burnt umber. Now this is a powerful color, so you want to use it in little bits at first. Use a little bit more. And you can keep tweaking back and forth depending on how warm or how cool you want that skin tone to be. Now I've added a little more burnt sienna. And now if I want to heat this color up a little bit, I can add a touch of cadmium red into that nice, warm, rosy place. And once again, I'll want a couple of values of this skin tone. Lighter value here. For highlights, deeper value right here. And then of course we'll want our shadow color. And for the shadow color, you want to start with a little bit of the base tone, which has titanium white, ochre yellow, little cadmium red, some burnt umber, and some burnt sienna. And I'm going to load up some more of this burnt umber into the shadow tone. And I'm gonna try a little ultramarine blue to this mixture. See how that shades it down. And voila, have a range of tones for darker skin. And again, you can tweak these in all kinds of different directions. You can go heavier or lighter on the reds, the yellows, or the burnt sienna or the burnt umber. You can experiment with different blues for the shadow tones. And there we have it, your full flesh tone palette. All right, guys, see you in the field for the actual painting tutorial. Bye.